We out of red in England. All aboard, yeah, you know it's Hype Train FC. Modern ambition, we got blue and gold in our kit. Plus, you know we the champs of the league, and we don't quit. Started from grassroots, yeah, the sport, we ain't taking it light. You know it's real, from fantasy to the field. You better believe the hype. Yeah.
Hello everyone, my name is Robert Austin and welcome back aboard the Hype Train podcast. Today on another special Grassroots look, I've got James Rowe at Burghfield FC on board. We're going to be talking a lot about grassroots football and how multi-club structures work. Hype Train over here, we've got one team that run across both Saturday and Sunday, and what I was really looking forward to is having a conversation with somebody that is a volunteer for a club that's got teams across all youths, all adult teams, women's, men's, every single type of football team that you could want. Burghfield kind of do that. They run through every age group. So what I wanted to do is just have a different perspective of how a team like Burghfield operates compared to a small club. So let's get straight into it as me and James get into the big details of how a larger community club works. Hi everyone, Rob from the Hype Train podcast here, and I'm joined by another special guest today. James, do you want to introduce yourself to the people?
Hi Rob, yeah, special guest. I've never had that before. I'm James Rowe, head of men's football at Burghfield Football Club. Delighted to have been invited into talking with you today, Rob.
Yeah, of course. And for those that don't know, James is a head of Burghfield, who are a very, very big, widespread club across the Reading and local area. James, how many clubs do Burghfield have? Off the top of your head?
So in the men's setup this year, we've got 7 teams across Saturdays and Sundays. But as a whole team, ranging from under 4s through to open age, so men's, women's, walking football, we've got 48 teams.
Okay, lovely. And the main reason why I wanted James on the podcast today for the listeners at home was that we're really trying to get into the structure and organisation of grassroots football and kind of how everything is knitted together. And James and his club and Luke as well at Burghfield do such a good job at organising a mass variety of teams across the ages and youths and genders. So it was a really good opportunity for me to basically understand a little bit more about how that side of football works. Hype Train, we have one adult club that runs across Saturday and Sunday, but then there's a whole nother behemoth of doing that across all ages and all genders. So first of all, James, just talk us a little bit about the structure of Burghfield. Like, how is it done? Because at my end, I've got 1 or 2 volunteers that help me out. What kind of is like the broad overview? We'll start at the beginning. What is kind of like the broad overview of how Burghfield runs and operates?
So great starting point, I think, to start, obviously. So our structure is quite unique. It's certainly not something I've come across in grassroots football before, but it seems to work, and I think that's ultimately the most important thing, right? Find a way that works. So we've got a committee with a chairman, vice chairman, secretary, treasurer, welfare officer, development officer. I could go on and name all of the roles, but I'm bound to miss someone out and offend someone. And that committee is probably 14 to 15 people strong, going forwards. And their role is to really look after the club as a whole. So everything, all aspects of the club, and that might be from development, from administration with the Bucks and FA. From a finance perspective with a treasurer's hat on, for example, and then underneath that kind of, so that's the top layer, as it were. Underneath that, we then have heads of ages for each age group. So each age group, whether that's under 4, for example, men's, which is where I come in, or even our women's team, or under 15s, for example, will have a head of age, and that person's role is really to look after that age group, or the number of teams that sit within that age group. And then obviously could be the direct communication with the committee in terms of wants, requirements, needs, etc. And then underneath the head of ages, we will then have team managers with their relevant coaching staffs, etc. So there's a huge army of volunteers. I think on last count or last time I saw a full list of coaches and volunteers, there's about 120 people that are all involved from A to B, as it were, and all doing their input. Complete volunteer-led organisation, if I get my words out there, and everyone giving their time because they obviously really enjoy their roles and stuff.
And across the board, those 100+ volunteers that kind of help out, is it all volunteers? Do Burghfield at any level pay any members of staff, or is it purely a volunteership?
All volunteers. So yeah, that might be 100% volunteers. We don't pay anyone. It might well be parents. So typically at the younger age groups, you get parents or older siblings or uncles and aunts, nieces, grandparents, etc. And then as we get into the open age categories, so the men's, women's, walking, it typically tends to be ex-players or people like myself who love football but actually ability-wise are not very good, but still want to be involved in the game. So yeah, it typically tends to be people who've got an affiliation to football somewhere. But yeah, all volunteer-led. No one's paid here. It's a volunteer-led organisation. In actual fact, you probably end up with volunteers dipping into their own pockets from time to time through sponsorship and things like that. So a lot of our volunteers, who maybe if we've got who are self-employed, might well also be volunteers and coaches for a team, but also a sponsor. So yeah, it's a real joint effort from everyone, and everyone kind of pulling in the same direction in the same way to make things successful.
And so all of that is filtered through the committee. Mm-hmm. How long does it take for decisions to be made at a club like Burghfield, which has everything? Is everything unilateral, as in across the ages you have one set code of conduct or a handbook that applies to everybody? Or do you have to tailor different things to, say, adults and the youth and the women's teams and the walking football?
Yeah, we have handbooks are a good phrase to use, Rob, because we've just finished writing our handbooks. So or updating our handbooks rather, should I say, for this season coming. So we will have a handbook, and it's a directory and an idea of how to do things. But it's not set in stone. There's a degree of flexibility there. What I would say is that our committee is really, really open to ideas. If you go to the committee with ideas, you go to the committee with suggestions, and you can demonstrate to the committee why you're wanting to do it and what the positive outcomes are, or what the outcomes are, and how that has a positive influence on what you're trying to do. Then I would say 99% of the time the committee will support that. Certainly in my, I'm trying to think now, 3.5 years at the club, I've not had any pushback on things I want to do. Obviously, it's like a business, right? And whilst it's not a business, this probably comes with my professional hat on. You go to the powers above, so in this instance, the committee, and there's no real hierarchy really, and no one's super powerful. But you approach the committee with your ideas and suggestions. You put a bit of a business case forward in terms of how you want to do it and why you think it would be a good idea, and then they will support. And that might be things, for instance, in the men's category, we see things like equipment. So I have to admit, we did copy you with the VO camera. So obviously with the recording of games and stuff like that. Me and Steve, our first team manager, approached our committee on that and said, look, this is what it does, this is what it can do, what are the benefits, what are the fors and against, etc., pros and cons of it, what's the costings, how can we fund that, how can we support that. And then it's a case of actually the decision's made, and it does bring benefit to the club, it does bring benefit to the teams and the offering that we offer. And then we weigh up the financial costs of it, and if it makes sense from a financial perspective as well, then we will do it. But like I said, in the 3.5 years I've been at the club, I can't fault the committee. Yes, there's difference of opinions on things in terms of how things should be done. There's always going to be that in any walks of life. There could be differences on how things are done in at home in relationships, right? So there's always, but 99% of the time we get to an outcome,
of course,
that is positive for the football club. And I think that's really important to kind of let the listeners know, is that everyone's that's involved here at Burghfield is involved for kind of one stroke two main reasons really. One, because they love football and want to be involved in grassroots football, and two, because they want the club to succeed. There's no one at the club that I've come across yet, and I've been here 3.5 years, that sits there and says wants the club to fail, wants the club to go backwards, or wants, do you know what I mean? And I think that's really important. That
or I'm here for myself. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really important that everyone's onboarded and everyone's open to ideas, and there's no stupid questions. I think that's probably the best, and that comes from the top. Luke Bishop, who's our chairman, and Liam Gillis, who's their vice chairman, they do a great job along with other key committee members in terms of being very open and transparent. It's that kind of open door policy. Come and talk to us. Come and bring your ideas and suggestions. Don't get me wrong. I've put suggestions forward where we've done suggestions and I put the ideas forward and it's something that they may have done 5-10 years ago and it hasn't worked, and that's fine, and you have honest conversations about that. But yeah, in terms of answering the question directly, Rob, yes, there's a structure in place and a kind of a process in place on how things should be done in terms of guidance, to guide coaches and things. But there's also a degree of flexibility. It's not set in stone. It's not a you've got to do this way or it's the highway approach. It's this is how we've done it in the past. This is and we've documented that because it's worked. This is how we would suggest doing it. But again, if you're open to come to the table with new ideas and new approaches, then all for it.
So, in terms of how Burghfield got there, how long did it take for? I don't know if you know this or not, but how long did it take for Burghfield to get to this point where you've got a big open committee and quite a fluid open structure of communication? Because obviously, from my point of view at Hype Train, and when every team starts as one thing, you tend to have to grow up and build your base of volunteers and the people that you know, and you have to get more integrated into the community. How long did that take Burghfield to get into that position?
Yeah, look, so the club was founded in 1989, so it's been around 35 years now on. So it's an ongoing challenge, ongoing movement, as it were, there in that respect. I've been at the club 3.5 years, and the club have been fantastic in the time I've been here. Very welcoming, very inclusive in terms of ideas, suggestions, inclusive in terms of different people from different walks of life. So yeah, I would say it's an ongoing. But again, I think the most important thing to remember is that yes, it seems to work. It works right now and currently works right now. But you've also got to continue to improve and continue to make steps forward in what you do. And it's kind of and that's not just on the pitch. We talk to managers, and part of my role is I talk to managers about teams, and especially this time of year in pre-season, you're talking about recruitment and getting players in, etc. And it's kind of, if you stand still, you're actually going backwards because everyone else is doing things and times are moving on, right? So there's a very good approach of how can we continue to improve and have that dialogue. One thing that has improved in the time I've been here is there's more communication, there's more face-to-face meetings. Obviously, I joined and then right all of a sudden there was COVID. So actually, it's probably a little bit unfair for me to comment on what it was before that. But certainly for the first 18 months of my time, everything was done virtually. But there were regular calls, regular chats, and then we've come out of the back of that, and it's actually now right. The committee meet at once a month, and then we have a head of age group every other month. Meetings and then there's general club meetings where people are invited to, and so there really is an open approach of come and talk to us. And I think communications is the big word that I would use there, or the big phrase that I would coin there, because it's all about communication and it's all about people understanding that their voices are heard. In essence, it's grassroots football. We don't want people to walk away. We don't want people to not enjoy it because they give up a lot of time, a lot of energy, time, resource, etc. Into doing it, and that's the most important. They have to feel valued, and I think that certainly me and my role, I feel valued, and that's the most important thing. I think everyone needs to feel valued.
So the value point basically goes into what some of the biggest challenges may face a team such as Burghfield across all the teams. From your point of view, in your position, obviously we touched on pre-season and player recruitment, and anybody that runs a football team, they know the mental gymnastics that go on typically if they are recruiting and actively looking about how to develop the club. But from your point of view, what's the what are the challenges for a club that has hundreds, if not thousands, of players? I don't know the specifics.
Yeah. So
but large volumes of players.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I can't comment on it from a junior perspective because I'm not involved in that. But certainly, with my men's hat on, there's a couple of ways to answer that in terms of challenges to what we do as a men's setup. I'm just trying to think of the best way to answer that. I think the first one we talk about, because we brought up already players. The first one you talk about is players. I think the challenge around players is when I first came into grassroots football, probably 15 years ago, you could run a Sunday team, for example, with 15 to 20 players, and actually most weeks, 9 out of 10 weeks actually rather, 15 of those 20 would turn up. And there were some weeks where, and that was back in the day where you had 11 and 3 subs, so you had squads of 14. And actually most weeks we were probably leaving 1 or 2 out because of our availability being that good. Flip it on its head now, you need to run to get a team out on a Sunday morning or Saturday afternoon or whatever it is. You probably not probably about it. You need squads of 30 plus, and that's because players. Now I'm not going to sit here and fault players, slag players off. Times have changed, right? But go back to when I first got involved, playing Sunday morning football or Saturday afternoon football, whatever it was. You signed up at the start of the season and you were there every week, unless you were suspended or injured or you're on holiday, you were there every week. Now it seems to be you sign on and you'll play if you're available. Play if you've got nothing else better, right? And I've never asked a player I will never ask a player why they're not available. If you put out on the availability that you're not available for that week or whatever, that's fine. But I have had players in the past come to me and say, "Oh, just to let you know, I can't make this week because I'm doing X, Y, and Z." And some of the excuses are laughable, right? And I'm not going to give excuses out because I think then players listening and watching this then know who they are when I say that. But some of them are laughable, and I just think that's a mentality shift of the current age or the current demographic of the playing community. Is that unfortunately, players, it's not the be-all and end-all to play on a Sunday morning anymore, to get up and no matter what. Yeah, I went out on Saturday night and got in at X o'clock in the morning, but I'm still going to get up and play football. Now it's kind of a little bit of I'll play football if I've got nothing else on. And that's a shame. And I don't know how we as a football club or we as clubs and I see that as not just a Burghfield problem, by the way. I see that across everyone. I think when I'm a bit of a stats man, and I love numbers and things like that. And I look at what other clubs are doing in terms of the number of players they've got registered or signed on. And I've recently, last couple of weeks, did a little bit of a pulled a report through number of players that have played for each team in the Reading Sunday League, and the average was 34 players per team, right? So that tells you that echoes what I've just said. But actually we have a real togetherness and a real desire, and it comes down to the phrase of sometimes in life hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard, to coin a phrase, right? And actually you can put all the superstars on the pitch as you want, but if there's no togetherness and no camaraderie and no hard work and that endeavour to do well for each other and fight to do well for each other, then you're going to struggle. And the problem we have when you're using so many players is that maybe you don't get that camaraderie and that togetherness and that spirit of that teamness. And like you say, your Saturday team are going to want a cup. Brilliant. To win any cup at any levels is a fantastic achievement. They've gone and done that, but they've used 17 players. Now that's to me, there's a direct correlation there as to why you've been successful. It's because you've got a squad of players that all know each other. They all know that how X likes the ball to be passed to him, or they all know what jobs they're going to do. They all know that across the pitch, 1 to 11 or 1 to 17, you've included the subs, etc. They all know what they're going to do. When you've got such a big pool of resource of players, and that's forced upon you for availability. You touched on your Sunday element as well. 1 week there's inconsistencies. 1 week you'll play and you'll be brilliant. You think this is brilliant, we've cracked it. The next week, 4 of that team drop out and say I can't play because I'm doing X, Y, and Z. And then you're backfilling with players that maybe aren't as good or strong, or maybe aren't as round as much, or don't understand that spirit and camaraderie, and that's the challenge. So yeah, how do we? The question there will be, how do we incentivize these lads to get out of bed on a Sunday morning and turn up every week? That's ultimately the biggest challenge.
Just to jump in there, I feel like my club is a very good example of that type of change in culture. We started around the COVID time as well, so the time that you've been involved at Burghfield is the time that we've been going, and we've got 2 very different case studies. Our Sunday team has usually been awash with players that are available because, as you're right, we have about 40 in a WhatsApp group just to cover our Sunday team, and we haven't had any success on Sundays because the players that come in and out means that you don't have any continuity. But on our Saturday team, we didn't actually run on Saturdays last year because of what we mentioned about players doing other things, not committing on the day. So I decided to pull the plug and save my hair from going even more grey than what it's going. So I thought we'll save it for a year. But when we did have our Saturday team going, and thankfully I'm in a position to bring it back this year, but when we did it, we won a cup, and I think we only fielded about 17 players, 18 players the entire season because we had such a small core. But the core that got together, we weren't necessarily the best. We had some places where we could have improved, and we didn't have a goalkeeper until March. But we won a cup, and and that wasn't with what I consider, when you're in a position where you go, oh, he's a good player, they should make a good squad. The best squad that I've played in have been the squad where we haven't had the best team, and we've just been available, and we've dug in with 11 or 12.
Yeah, I don't think you're wrong. And actually, I think if you looked at it from, again, I'm just thinking out loud here, Rob. I think if you looked at the demographic of players that are for us that are there every week, it's probably the older boys. The older boys are the lads who are coming towards the end of their careers, turn up every week. And they're the ones that it's the younger boys. It's the 18 to 25-year-olds that are probably there once or twice a month, and that's really challenging. So that's probably the first challenge on players. The second challenge, and you touched on it just a little bit there on cost of living and things like that, is probably facilities. Increased cost of facilities, availability of facilities. We're fortunate we've got a couple of training slots for our men's teams anyway, and this comes down to the fantastic work that our committee and our venues coordinators within the committee do in terms of finding us training facilities and stuff, and especially in the winter. But any 3G pitch that goes up in and around Reading is snapped up like that. Pitches, the availability is limited. It has got better. That's one thing I will say. I'm not going to sit here and say it's all doom and gloom. There has been good in progress made with the addition of extra 3G pitches. Deanfield School, for example, Wangel School, for another one to name a couple there. But I certainly feel that there's still work to be done there, and that comes down to a demand and supply thing, right? These venues as well. Some of the prices you pay are astronomical for half a pitch for an hour. You're talking not much change from £100, and that is a challenge. So how do we work alongside the leagues, the councils, the county FA, local organisations, schools, etc., to be able to continue to offer those services, but at a rate that's sustainable and doesn't hamper teams. I think a lot of teams just don't train. And I speak to a lot of secretaries or a lot of managers at league meetings or calls, etc. They just don't train anymore because of the lack of facilities. So actually, everyone sits here and says the standards maybe not what it was 10 years ago, but it's not going to be because of the facilities. So in answer to your challenging questions, Rob, there's probably the two bits: players and how do we get players to regularly come and play every week, and then secondly is facilities and the availability and cost of those facilities. That's probably the two strongest challenges that I see day to day.
I've got a feeling. I've got a feeling that this is probably going to be a generational thing rather than a few people talking about on a podcast regularly. This is probably something that the FA has to combat, but also the government, cost of living, people's habits. This is all generational things that we need to change. As you're right,
that echoes what I just said, right?
Yeah.
And
sorry, go on.
At some point, that again, it's a supply. It's very basic economics of supply and demand. Someone like JMA, and no disrespect to them, right? They're looking at what they can do to bring in funds for their school and their education and budgets are tight. I understand that. They're looking at going, right, we've got loads of people knocking at the door, so that demand's high. What do you do when demand's high? And the supply is limited. You bump your prices up, right? Because they know full well that if you don't pay it, or we don't pay it, or Caversham don't pay it, that they've got another team down the road going, we'll take it. So that's and I just think that when you look at the Football Foundation and local councils are doing some good work in terms of trying to address that problem. I'm just not sure when we'll see the fruits of that labour. Certainly where we are in West Berks, in West Berks, you look at, certainly if you go out towards Thatcham, Newbury area, there's a distinct lack of resource there. You look at someone like Newbury on a Saturday, a club that size of no longer. I know there's some challenges with their pitches and venues at Faraday Road, but to not have a 3G facility within Newbury area that is regularly available for a club of the size of Newbury to play on a Saturday afternoon is laughable, to be honest. And there's ultimately something's gone wrong, very wrong there with the organisations involved. I'm just looking at that from an outsider, so I wouldn't know the full picture of that. But from an outsider and a supporter of grassroots football, I look at it and think something's gone wrong there. What that something is, I don't know, but certainly there has to be some improvements made. And like I said, luckily, I think the Football Foundation and the local council have had their eyes opened and are actually now starting to address those, because we are seeing a number of 3G facilities come up available and applications go in, and you hear on the grapevine that this school's going to be doing it and that school's going to be doing it. So it is improving, but how long until we're at a point where demand meets supply, I don't know.
So I'll touch on the facilities one, because your Burghfield Saturday team trained directly after us at JMA on a Wednesday evening, and this is one case where they've put up their prices since last year about 20%. So this coming September, the prices, as you're right, it's going to be a couple of pounds shy of £100, which is a significant challenge for teams. And Caversham, who train next to us, have told us that they don't even think they're going to train next year as a result, because
I live opposite the school, so I had heard of that.
So let's just switch gears a little bit, because there are another couple of challenges, and I'm a football organizer at heart, and I absolutely love organising football, and people see it on my end that I'm just constantly looking at how to improve and develop. The one thing that I am interested to know from Burghfield's point of view, and we're remaining on the subject of challenges, what challenges does the club face internally on a week-to-week or a month-to-month basis? I'll give you a couple of my examples of working from a small club, and then you can kind of like jump in.
Yep.
So at a small club, we worry a little bit more about the finances month to month, depending on how players are good at tracking their money, and largely about player availability. Those are the two big things. From a structural point of view, I never have an issue, because I'm unfortunately a meticulous human being, so I get everything done as soon as possible. If we play on a Saturday and a Sunday, I'm usually home doing all the admin on a Saturday and a Sunday afternoon after the games. By Monday, it's just reset for the new week, so that I can focus on getting some YouTube videos up, for example. But from a larger club point of view, when you've got a big committee and there are multiple people and personalities involved, are there week-to-week challenges or month-to-month or like regionalised challenges that you guys have to go through?
So I'll touch on the points you made. So player availability, we would put availability poll. We use WhatsApp. and we put availability poll out. For the Saturdays it'll be Monday morning. For the Sundays it's Tuesday morning, and the players are all asked to vote in, out, as it were, yes, no. And that then gives us a clearer picture, and then we will meet. So the Sundays, let's just go on Sundays because obviously we're talking with Sunday hats on.
Yeah.
The Sunday managers will then train on a Thursday evening, and then the Sunday managers after training will have a meeting, typically for half an hour or so to discuss availability on a Thursday evening, and we roughly know really where we are in terms of what numbers are looking like, who we've got, and the players are well drilled that as soon as that availability message is out, get your response in as soon as possible. And then there might be some actions or calls to actions from the back of that discussion on a Thursday evening around player availability of, right, we're a little bit short this week, let's get into X, Y, and Z. We haven't had a response from ABC, let's chase them, kind of thing. And then the managers will go on and have those discussions, and then we will reconvene via WhatsApp messaging on a Friday to say, right, this is where we're at, this is the full list of availability, which typically goes out as a screenshot, as a Excel spreadsheet, and then it's over to the managers to pick the teams. So that, from a availability and selection process, seems to work. Open to sort of ideas if anyone wants to come with some ideas on how we can improve that. As always, you can always try and tweak things and improve things, but that does seem to work for us. In terms of collecting financials week to week, etc., we have trialled it this year with our Saturday teams in terms of them paying money online through, we use Pitch Hero to host our website. Pitch Hero have a membership and a payment functionality, and we've tried that this year with the Saturdays, and we found that when we were doing cash, and this is no fault of anyone, no one has cash anymore. I think if I pick my wallet up off the table in front of me, there might be a sporadic £10 note that's been sat in there as an emergency for the last 6 months, but no one spends cash anymore. I actually, funny you say that, I was in Sweden 2 or 3 weeks ago on holiday with a group of friends, and I did the same thing at the airport, changed up a couple of £100 into Swedish crown, and then you get to Stockholm and you can't spend cash anywhere. It's a cashless city. No one takes any cash. So yeah, if anyone's going to Sweden in the next couple of months and wants to take some cash off me, then give me a call. But what you find on a Sunday morning is X, Y, and Z's got out of bed and realised that he hasn't got any. Gets to the ground and then realises he hasn't got any cash. So then you add it onto a list of, well, he owes this, and this. So what we've tried this year with our Saturday team is we've moved away from collecting subs weekly at the game, and we've gone, right, at the end of the month we'll say to you, right, Rob, you owe X amount through the Pitch Hero app, and then you'll just log on and pay that, and then that goes straight into the club. What that does do as well, it gives us a paperwork or paper trail, as it were, of funds going in, and that then allows the club to have a clearer picture and visibility as to what money's being spent. That obviously the only real challenge we have on that is if a referee wants to be paid in cash, and there's a split, probably 50-50 we're seeing with referees, whether it's online or by cash, and that would then mean that myself or Luke on a Friday would get cash from the treasurer and then distribute that out to the managers. So there's a little bit of added layer in there, but what we found is, yes, there's a little bit more work from someone like Luke or the treasurer, but it actually means that we're collecting all the money as opposed to actually, right, we charge £5 a game, I haven't got my £5 this week, and then next week you turn up and that's been forgotten about. So actually the club's then £5 down, and that's not intentional, that's just how it happens, right? So actually us doing, yeah, exactly. So us doing it all online at the end of the month, and that what that means is that Luke or I would sit down at the end of the month for that team. So example, Saturday first team, and we'd go through the fixtures. The managers have to put match report cards in directly after the game anyway, so you can see who's played, and we'll do a tally up, and we'll see that Rob Austin's played 4 games on a Saturday. Right, go on to
20 quid,
Pitch Hero
please.
and allocate £20 to you, and then you get a notification and it's done right. And that's been really successful this year. We've found that that's really worked. The players tend to like it because they're not having to worry about have I got cash on me, have I not got cash on me, and it actually helps them in terms of at the end of the month they know roughly what their bill's going to be roughly. Don't get me wrong, there are some players that will come to you and say I'm a bit short this month or whatever. At that point you work with them. I certainly feel we're never going to turn a player away because they owe X amount or they can't, they're a little bit short on cash. That's how it is. We'll work with that player or work with that individual to try and find a way of a positive outcome. Ultimately, Grassroots, I've come across clubs in the past or teams in the past that have said, oh, he owes X amount of money, we're not going to let him play. I think that has a hindrance on what you're trying to achieve. Grassroots football is there to, or grassroots sport rather, amateur sport, if you want to, however you want to brand it, is there so people can switch off from day-to-day challenges, right, and day-to-day life for whether it be 90 minutes on a Sunday morning or whatever it is. So it's to work. Don't get me wrong. If we're getting into the rings of someone owing excessive amounts of money, then and then there's been no what's the word I'm looking for? No kind of communication or no active proactiveness for them to make a dent or make a chip away at that debt. Then it's another conversation. But yeah, certainly there's been one or two which said, "Oh, can I give you?" I don't know. There's a couple of lads that have played both days, Saturdays and Sundays, and you're looking at maybe 60 quid that month, and they've had a booking, so it goes up as well a little bit. And they're saying, "Oh, can I give you 40 quid this month, and I'll give you an extra £20 in a couple of weeks," things like that. Again, it comes down to what I said earlier, right? Really, we talked about right at the start of the conversation, Rob. We talked about communication and about how the committee works, and it comes down to, and it's a communication thing. Speak to people if you've got a problem. But yeah, so those are the player availability we're quite good on, and financially, week to week, we acknowledge that cash isn't a way forward anymore. And we will transition that all into a digital platform moving forwards.
No, that sounds really good. Do you know any of the? Do you know if there's any differences with how the youth team works and collect money, or is it all the same across the board at Burghfield?
So youth team have done slightly differently. So how the men's setup works is that there's a sign-on, what we call a membership fee for each individual, and that's £40 a year. That covers the club membership fee, and that essentially you get a few bits of kit for that, training kits, etc., and that covers your registration with the league, your insurance, all the insurances, club affiliation, generic equipment, balls, cones, etc. We've just had to put that up this year. Unfortunately, we looked at that previously. We'd run that at £30 for an adult member for the last 6 or 7 years, but looking at the cost of everything, we had to put that up. Unfortunately, it's not something we wanted to do, but something our hands are forced at. And to be honest to you, Rob, it's been well received by the players. Most of the players are kind of, we communicated that early that was happening, and most of the players fully understand the position we're in. And then the players then pay, the adult players then pay on a weekly basis, or what would actually
the subs.
Subs. For the youth teams, it's slightly different. And I'm not going to quote numbers because I don't know what the numbers are, because I don't
just like a broad overview.
Yeah, for what happens for the youth teams is they will then pay. So you will pay a set figure for your child for that season, and that will then cover as a youth membership, and that covers. Now, figure wise, I don't know the number, so I'm not even going to try to have a guess, because I might get widely below or above the mark, and that covers everything, and then. And again, that's available. You can pay that as one-off lump sum. You can pay that monthly over a 5 or 6 month period. You can pay that in 2 or 3 different. There's so many different options available. I think and that's the main thing. It comes back to being flexible. We don't want people to turn around and say, I can't afford X at the start in July when we ask for it. So little Jimmy's not going to play football anymore. That's not how we want to work. We want to work with our parents and children. And actually, football's available for all. I think that's probably the driving message that we have at the club. No matter your age, because we cover all ages. We cover boys and girls in terms, and ladies, men and ladies, or men and women rather, if I get the terminology right. And we're open to anyone and everyone who wants to play football is welcome to come and have a trial with us. And that's the thing, I think, and that's why we've probably got. Look, certainly on a men's perspective, we could go right. We're going to run with one team on a Saturday, one team on a Sunday, and be in the top league and want to win everything, and want to win the cups, want to win the leagues. And relatively, we've been fairly successful at the top of our first teams have been fairly successful. On a Saturday in the Thames Valley, we've had a couple of top three, top four finishes in the last few years, and done relatively well in the latter stages of the cups. Sundays we've done really well in that we won the Tyler's Charity a few years back. We won the Bucks and Bucks this year, and we've finished in the top 3 or 4 of the league the last few years. Been in the National FA Cup as well. But actually, what's more important in some respects is that the teams at the lower end, so our third team on a Saturday or our fourth team on a Saturday, who are in the bottom divisions, they offer football to players that would otherwise at other clubs may not necessarily get that football, and they still go out on a Saturday afternoon or Sunday morning, and are able to enjoy their football at that relevant level. Go and have a game of football, enjoy it, have a drink after, get involved in the social and a bit of the camaraderie that goes around. Whereas you could go down the route of let's have one team, and that's not a dig at you, by the way, because you guys, I know you guys are only one team. I suddenly just thought in my head, I was going to take that as an offensive, and that's not, by the way, that's not what I'm saying.
No.
But I think because you guys are not like that from the conversations we've had and the times we played you, but there are certainly some teams out there. It's a win at all cost mentality, and that's certainly not what we're about. What we want as a club is football for all. If you want to come and play football, football-wise, we're limited in terms of numbers, because we can't have so many numbers in terms of we can't have so many players in individual teams, because we just won't get players a fair opportunity to play. But as a club, we're always expanding. We wouldn't have 48 teams across all age groups if we weren't a football for all organisation.
So I just want to touch on a couple of points there about the one club thing. You've completely nailed it. First of all, I know a lot of clubs that only exist with that mentality, and the reason why I'm kind of on this journey with this podcast to begin with is so that I, as a person, and the club and other people that are along the same breadth of what I am, I want to learn and grow and develop, so that one day I can potentially, jump on that ladder to, make one team into two teams into three, and really turn it into a community team. So just on that, do you think that your location is a hindrance or a benefit to that cause? Because obviously Burghfield in the larger Reading scope is one particular area. Do you feel like your locale offers that benefit of having that one club community feel to help you grow and develop? Whereas, for example, if you guys were based in central Reading, like where we are, where you're competing with all of these other teams that are win at all costs, the sometimes lack of facilities, do you feel like that locale in a little, Burghfield's not little, but a smaller parish area of Reading, do you think that works to your benefit as a club?
Yes, to answer that in short, Rob, yes. I think we're really, really fortunate in that players tend to stay. Players tend to come to Burghfield through youth team football, through moving to the area, etc. Through other avenues. They tend to stay. They don't tend to shop around and go. In terms of the location, we're really fortunate. There have been teams in and around Burghfield in the past. The Bantam, when that was a pub back in a few years ago, AFC Burghfield, to name a few, have had clubs in the past, and they've had success in their own individual right. What Burghfield is very good at is, like I said, is making players feel wanted and valued. And the location-wise, it's brilliant. All of our players, I think, if you look at the County Cup final this year, and I put a tweet out in a drunken haze the night of celebrating it or something.
I'll put it up on the screen.
12 of our 16 players that night when we won the County Cup final had played youth team football with the club. And what a fantastic achievement that is, right? And by the way, we're not an academy. We're never going to proclaim to be an academy. But it shows us as a pathway from youth football into men's football. And that the players had all played, 12 of those players had played youth football at some point or another in their youth journey. And that they'd either come back to the club after university or gone and played elsewhere, or they stayed with the club. And that's a fantastic achievement. I think that demonstrates not just the hard work and commitment that's been done by myself and the men's setup, but also by the coaches that have coached these players at youth team, that they've coached them in an environment and culture that makes the players want to either come because they've been scouted to go to academies or whatever it is. And by the way, the 4 other players, one's a brother-in-law of a player, so is connected through that. Two others live in the village, and the 4th, he coaches his nephew that plays in the under-10s or whatever it is. So there's a real connection. Yeah. So, and don't get me wrong, you could sit there and say, because I sit there and say when we have talks about recruitment, let's go and see if we can get this player from that team.
So it's all connected.
And that's fine. That's all well and good, but there has to be. They have to buy into what we're doing, and there's a real affiliation. It's a real community spirit. And we're really at the forefront. We want to be at the forefront of the community. Our club secretary Yvonne is also a parish councillor, and she does some great work in terms of trying to champion the work that we do within that. In terms of at the Burghfield Mayfair, we're down there doing a penalty shootout competition. We happily support other local events and things going on in the community. And we had our family fun day and youth presentation and family fun day where we had organisations from within the village doing catering and activities and all that kind of stuff. So we're really keen to. It's a community club without being kind of an official community club, because I know that the FA have got these titles of clubs in the past, but we are a club that really wants to be at the heart of our community and give something back to the community, because the community give us stuff give us in terms of players, sponsorship, and it's a two-way cycle. So yeah, in terms of location, we're really fortunate. As I said, we could be a central Reading team, or we could be a team in an area that's densely populated with a number of clubs. So yeah, we benefit from not having many clubs on our doorstep. And I said that's not to say that there won't be clubs come and go in the past or in the future. Sorry, but yeah, we're really fortunate that players tend to get involved with Burghfield and tend to either return after studying or whatever, and or stay around. And what we've done, certainly in my time at the club, is really some good, excellent work around that pathway. I think we talked around players earlier in terms of number of players and not necessarily being as committed as we would probably like them to be. One thing that we see a lot of the time, and you may have seen a couple of communications out from a coach at a youth team, in terms of trying to get his players into somewhere recently from the league. A lot of clubs in and around the area are great at youth team football. They're brilliant at youth team football. They've got they offer a fantastic service to players 18 and under. But when you get to 18, there's no offering for them. They come to the end of their journey with that club or with that kind of youth team age group set up, and there's no journey. There's no natural progression as to where do they go, what they do. So what you typically tend to find, a lot of these players go to university, work commitments, they find girlfriends, boyfriends, whatever it is, and their lives change a little bit. So they're not necessarily focused on football as much as they want. But there are a lot of players that would like to play football a lot, and they fall at the wayside because they're not entirely sure of how to get involved with men's football. So what we've done really good work at, and shouts out to our under-18s manager this year, the season just gone, a guy called Adam Green, an ex-player of ours, an ex-men's player. He did some really good work this year in terms of integrating his under-18s players into men's, and we picked up probably 8 or 9 from last year. and the year before, a guy called Tony Walkup, again similar numbers. And Tony's actually, as a coach, he was a parent who got into coaching through him and his son's love for football. He's actually taken his coaching into the men's setup, and that's brilliant to see. Right, there's a clear progression, and that's something we have to really improve, have to really continue to work on and improve. And then this year's under 18s, Simon, who runs the 18s this year, we've had some really good positive conversations with him and around his players progressing as well. So yeah, it's all good stuff.
No, that's really, really good. And because like from my point of view, that's such a big benefit, because I was part of that. I'm local to Tyler, and I've always been living here my whole life. And when I was young, I started late, so I wouldn't say I'm the best footballer on the planet. I'm not even anywhere near to like the top 10 of my own team.
Yeah.
But I started late when I was 13, 14 at Purley Jubilee in the local area. And as soon as we hit 18, it was a case of most of the lads actually stayed for another year doing either work placements. And there was nothing for us. So there was one adult male team, and they had no intent on bringing the youth teams through to their first team unless they were a special player. Yeah. And at youth football, sometimes you don't figure that out until a little bit later on. And, I was one of those guys that just fell off the face of the earth with football because of that. And, I was looking going, how do I get into it again?
It's a real shame.
You do other things.
Yeah, it's a real shame, because and then you do other things. You lost the game, right? And we talk about. I always say to players, even at the other end, other end of their ages, the lads who are late 30s, early 40s, the day you stop playing is you have all good intentions to say, I'll come back in. Right? You find other things. Other things take up your time, right? And
no,
at 18, when you stop playing youth football, you can give it the biggest macho man in the world. You think you've made life because you're 18, and you can legally buy a pint in the pub and stuff like that, right? And you can go and have a bet or whatever you want to do at 18, right? You think it's brilliant, but actually, at 18 years of age, walking into a changing room or going to training with a group of men who are all in their late 20s, early 30s can be quite daunting and can be a little bit of a frightening experience. So what we have to try and do is reduce that fear. And I'm not saying anything's ever happened. Certainly at Burghfield it's never happened. And actually our senior players, our captains of our teams, and our players that are seasoned players have done a similar journey as well. I think you take our club captain last season, he's just transitioned into coaching this year. Adam Taylor, for example, was a player with a youth team, and he's brilliant. He's brilliant at putting an arm around the young players and making them welcome. As is Ryan Farmer, who's our Sunday captain and captain of the team that won the Bucks and Bucks. Ryan's mum's on the committee. Ryan's family are all involved in the club. Ryan wants the best of the club, so people like that are really important, and you have to have those people in there. But at 18 years of age, if you walk into a changing room, and it can be quite daunting, so you need characters to come in and welcome you and support you. And for us, I'm not saying that it happens, but I'm not saying it definitely happens, but I would imagine some of those under 18s this year, some of the lads who were under 17s last year, who will be under 18s this year, come and watch our games on a Sunday morning, or come and watch the games on a Saturday afternoon, and they get to know who the players are. And when they go to training and those players ask them how they are, or ask them what their name is and things like that, and it helps. It really helps, and it's been really. We've had some great success because we've been able to integrate those players in the recent years, and let's hope we can continue to do that.
I'll be honest, my biggest regret being 32 now and being on the tail end of my golden years, either playing football, because I'm going to be stepping back at some point to properly manage and grow and develop and be the backseat guy, be a Luke, be a James at Burghfield. But my biggest regret in hindsight was falling out with the whole football thing. I slap myself sometimes thinking, God, why did I not play when I could?
How long did you have out of the game?
So when I finished at Purley, I had a third year at my secondary school. I completely flunked my first year of A-levels because I'd done really well on my GCSEs, and all of my mates we didn't take it seriously. So we did a third year of A-levels, and then we kind of got our act in order. We all got A's and B's and went off to university. And even when I came back from university, like 3 or 4 years later, I just did not get back involved until I was 25. And then I joined Woodley United, but I only did that through a friend that was basically begging me to do it, and he was the arm around me that was like, no, you need to start playing again. So there was a good 7 years that I didn't play, and I was and I'm a football guy through and through, and like even somebody like me, 7 years.
You're one of the good stories there, Rob, because you are someone that has come back. The amount of players that I know that when I first got involved in grassroots football, 15 or so years ago now, the players are all my similar age, so I'm a little bit older than you. Players are all 19, 20, and they get to 27, 25, 26, 27, and they move away for work. A couple of lads went to live in London. A couple of lads get married, so they're not doing it. And they've all in good intentions. I'll go and play. I'll play in London, or I'll play if I live somewhere else, or I'll give me a year we just had a baby. We'll play. Get that sorted, and I'll play, right? And I can count on one hand the number of players that have played stops because of whatever, and come back. And that's really, if we're doing that, we've got to capture that at 18. Now, don't get me wrong. If you're doing it at 25, 26, 27, I get it to some extent, but doing it at 18, that's a real shame. And for me, we've got to really work on, not just as at Burghfield, because I think we do a fairly good job at it, but across the board nationally, we've got to work on that pathway from junior football or youth football to men's football or to adult football.
And I'll be honest, sorry, go on, finish.
Go on.
I was just going to jump in about that, because you mentioned about how we need to do better. And when I went to university, I was trialling for all of the BUSC League, the BUCS leagues, and the intramural leagues, and because it's a lot of people your age, there was a very strong mentality of only the best players are going to make the teams. And I went up to Norwich, the University of East Anglia, and these guys that were running the trial sessions, they just took one look at you, and before you even kicked the ball, you could already tell with the way they looked at you whether it was a yes or a no. And they had to fill like 5 or 6 teams up, and it was all just friends of friends, and somebody like me that just turned up out of the blue. I was an okay player at university, but they never took a chance on like the normal lads, and that crippled me and my friends that were trialing, because we just said, no, we're not even going to bother, because the distinct atmosphere at that university was like, eat or be eaten. And, so we thought there was no pathway even when we went to university for football. So then my brain completely switched off of playing for a local grassroots team, because at that age, when you're 18, my stubbornness was like, nope, not doing it. Because you just face that constant, it's not a rejection, but it's not even like an acknowledgement of your abilities. And there were hundreds of kids in my exact same thing. So maybe the FA, if I was the FA, and I've always thought about this, the FA I think should step in at university level about encouraging people to play at that development pathway as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Because there's nothing. I'll just finish, because the guys that were running the sessions were third years masters students that had kind of like worked up throughout the teams, and it wasn't anybody that was affiliated. So it was almost like a Wild West rogue type of football where you could be the best player on the planet, but you weren't the mate of the captain of the first team. And I feel like there needs to be more of a bridge between these university teams, especially at intramural leagues, which are, if you don't know, the listeners at home, what that is, you've registered BUCS leagues, which are like, say, Norwich Uni versus Reading Uni, like their actual teams. And then you get the intramural leagues, which are friends teams that all form leagues throughout the years, but they're completely unregulated, and it's just a complete nightmare to navigate because you need to know people to get in it. But there's no intervention by the FA at that level, and it really turned me off. And that's kind of where I would target as well. I would kind of extend the FA's rules about positivity and inclusion to that level as well, because that really did help me just make a decision that I was going to have a girlfriend instead of playing football, and I was going to focus on my studies completely. But that's the decision that I had to make, and I'm a football guy. I'm the kind of kid that was I was the kind of kid that was memorising. I support Newcastle, always have. For people that think I'm an oil supporter, no. I was memorising football scores from the 2002-03 season, and I knew, God, I've got like this weird memory with football, and yeah, I was loving it. I used to go to Newcastle games in London all the time, cheering on Joey Barton and Kevin Nolan, and in the bad times, and it's so easy to fall off a cliff with that.
So you're enjoying a good time certainly now then. Look, I didn't do university pathway, so it's a great to listen to you there, Rob, and getting a bit of an eye opener on how that works. I certainly, again, I would be all for the leagues and the county FA working with the universities, reaching out to the university. I don't know the level of engagement that's already there in place, if there is any engagement. As a kind of right, you've moved to Reading, and as a student, do you want to play grassroots football? Do you want to play Sunday football? And it's a bit of a and by the way, anyone who's listening who's recently just moved or is thinking of moving to Reading or has recently moved to Reading, reach out to Rob and I, because we'll get you a team.
Absolutely.
Did a little plug there, Rob. But yeah, I certainly would say, I don't know whether there's any engagement with the universities and the leagues or the county FA. I would certainly encourage there to be some level of engagement, or if there is a level of engagement, improve that level or increase that level of engagement rather. And get players that want to play football, playing football, whether that's through the university systems. Again, I'm not too coy on that because I didn't go to university myself, or whether that's through playing grassroots amateur football, Saturday, Sunday leagues. There's some strong leagues in and around this area. You've got on a Sunday the Reading District Sunday leagues. It's a well run league. The committee, the people that run the Reading League do a great job. It's a strong league. There's a number of good teams in there, good competitive teams in there. So you'll have a good game of football. And then on a Saturday you've got the Thames Valley and the East Berks, again two long-standing leagues in the local area with some good teams and good standard of football again. But I don't know whether these whether these students rather are being actively encouraged to go out or given the opportunity or know-how to go out and do that. And I think when you move to a new city or new town, it's daunting as it is. Maybe sometimes playing football's at the back of your mind. But certainly it would be something that if we can get into as a league or as a generic kind of grassroots clubs, get in front of the students or get some contact details into students around if you want to play, come and get in contact, then brilliant, because I think you maybe miss out on picking up 2 or 3. Again, you might pick up some great players, you might pick up some bad players, who knows, but certainly there's some work to be done there, I think, and it's a good if we're looking at how clubs and why clubs are folding, and the number of clubs are decreasing on a Sunday, certainly from where we were maybe 10 years ago, the number has definitely decreased. And you're looking at avenues of trying to keep those clubs to continue and grow the number of clubs, the number of teams, the number of players. Certainly, going down the university route would be a good avenue to explore.
I'm just speaking out loud here, but I've always kind of had this thought for a few years now. So the university system, I kind of know a little bit about it because when I went to university, I knew the secretary at the UEA Knights team that they had. And it was very much that they would set up the leagues through the county FA, but it was largely left to the side, self-funded by the guys at university. But so it was almost like they were just having their hands held through the administration process and nothing else. My recommendation to the county FA, and I'm going to scream at them until I'm blue in the ears with it, is that they need to integrate the intramural teams with grassroots football, and then all of a sudden the leagues will have another 10 to 12 to 14 teams in, because these intramural leagues at university, there's 2 or 3 divisions. They need to interlink them with grassroots leagues. For example, we've always been part of the East Berks League hype train on Saturdays. We've been trying to get into the Thames Valley League. It just, for whatever reason, the stars haven't aligned for us yet. But with the East Berks League, this is a great example where, imagine if the County FA said to these intramural leagues, we're going to organise the leagues better and you're going to go into the East Berks League. So all the teams in Reading are going to be able to play university teams, and then you can integrate them with the adult teams in the local areas as well. That way then people get to leave the campus, they get to go out into the cities a lot more independence, they get to play against adults because a lot of them will be younger teams, and then they get to establish local links. We've got one player in our team called Tom, really, really lovely lad from Southend, and he's at Reading University now, and he reached out to about joining us, and he was struggling. I love him to pieces, but he said he was struggling to make friends. He's struggling because all he does is like football is his whole life, and it took until maybe November, December for him to find us and join us. And he said to me at the end of the season that he was considering potentially leaving university because he wasn't enjoying it, and the one escape that really helped him galvanise his university experience was joining a grassroots team and really enjoying the experience. So there needs to be, I think the FA could do wonders if they had an intramural league, so let's say at Reading University, linked with the local grassroots leagues. I think it would do absolute wonders for young kids to integrate into the area a lot more. Because, when I went to university, I went to a campus uni, so everything is one little bubble. Every building is next to each other, and there's not a lot. You don't need to leave the campus unless you're going to go out into the town drinking, right? So maybe there needs to be a way where you get people out of the bubble, expand their horizons, expand their world a little bit. And maybe doing that it's just a spitballing idea, but the County FA would, there's worse ideas out there for them to progress, because then these young kids that are just floating about all the times, then, I could have potentially played for a grassroots team, or if there was the link with the County FA in my position, the County FA could have turned around to me and said, hold on a minute, you're not going to play for the university teams, but here's a list of 50 teams in the local area that you can reach out to. Take your pick. So so that's kind of where I would start, getting the young lads that are coming in, and then help stem that bleeding that grassroots clubs are currently going through as well. Definitely. It's a great idea. Like I said, I don't really know much about the intramural leagues that you mentioned around the university, so it's difficult for me to put some ideas on the table, but I like what you're saying there, Robin. I think it would definitely help. And again, you touch on your story about Tom. I've got another familiar story from when I first started. In that a sponsor had a young lad from Belfast come over to work as an apprentice, and basically said, this lad Adam, he's coming over. He was 18, 19, I think he was, coming over to work for the sponsor as an apprentice. He likes football. Would you take a look at him and be involved with him? And what's that? 15 years down the line. He's one of my best mates, lives back in Belfast. Me and a few of the lads that were involved in that team when we first started went to his wedding, and he says the same thing. If it wasn't for the football team and the group of friends he made from that, he wouldn't have stuck it out at that apprenticeship scheme and then been able to forge his career off the back of that. So there's some great success. Sorry, get my words out. There's some great success stories on things like that across grassroots football, and that's the benefit of grassroots football to people new to the area. So again, if you're a student listening or someone that's new to the area, reach out to clubs, because there are some great clubs doing some great work out there, and you might end up having some great friends 15, 20 years down the line. Absolutely. And we'll just end on one little point, because we're already touching on it. But apart from that, obviously, there's a lot of success stories and benefits of running a team, and we've touched on it largely with players. Is there anything that you take away? Because obviously you're a volunteer, and Burghfield is surrounded by tons of them. What are the big things that make you happy at the end of the day, and some of those successes, and what do you go away with? Because I get a warm feeling whenever something goes right and there's a bit of admin that's done right, or something's organised to the max and it comes off, like an idea actually comes into existence and it's okay. What are the big success stories on your end, especially as a volunteer at a football club?
Great question to end, Rob. Why do we do it? Essentially, is that right? Do you know what? One of the best experiences I've had in here at Burghfield. It's not you know what I mean? Winning cups in big games is brilliant, right? And we've done that in the time I've been here, and we've had some great times doing that and great times celebrating that. One of the best success stories, or one of the best stories that I will take away, or moments I will take away with me, is we played in the national FA Sunday Cup the first year. So we've been involved in that competition 2 years now, and we'll probably look to apply for next year off the back of our County Cup win. But the first year we played, we got to the last 16, and we got knocked out by that year's finalists, a team called Highgate, who actually went on to be runners-up in that competition that year. And we travelled up. We put a coach on for the players and their families, and we travelled up on a coach, travelled back on a coach, on what I can only describe as a cabbage field of a pitch. The pitch was awful, and to be honest with you, probably shouldn't have been played that day. But we got beat 2-0 by a very good side, and there's no shame in that. But actually, the best thing about that was the coach journey on the way back. The boys, despite losing in a game in the last 16 of a national competition, were all singing, dancing, hard work and energy and drive and organisation that goes into that. And yes, we didn't win the game. Yes, I fully appreciate that. But to see all those players, and there are a couple of lads in there that were injured as well, or suspended or whatever, or not picked because you can't pick everyone. But to see a coach full of people, 50 people affiliated to the club, all on that coach, having a sing-song, having a laugh, enjoying each other's company, that's the biggest takeaway for me. And yes, you can do whatever you want on the pitch. You can win games, you can lose games, but it's all about that togetherness and that providing something for it. Essentially, my job here at Burghfield, and our jobs in any football club, is to provide a platform and an environment for these players to come and enjoy football, come and play football, game of football, that's at any level, whether that's certainly from a men's perspective, whether that's Division 4 of the Reading District Sunday League, or whether that's in the Senior County Cup or in the last 16 of the National FA Cup. My job is to make sure, or our job as a club, with our committee, coaches, etc., is to make sure we put these players and these adults in the men's setup a platform to come and play football. And they do that, but they do that with a smile on their face and enjoyment. That's the biggest takeaway.
No, of course. And for me, you've hit it on the head. Whenever I think about the best footballing moments, sometimes they're not even on the pitch. Some of mine are the conversations that I have, the friendships that I've made. My biggest one is my club captain, who's unfortunately leaving us because he's moving and he's been injured for the past year, Vince. He came in and he's got a different mind to me. And as soon as he came in as this leader, and the stuff that I could see and the stuff that I needed to improve on, he could just see it. He could just see exactly, okay, the club's great, but you're not seeing this, and this that you could do. And my relationship with a person like Vince, who's a very social guy as well, really galvanizes the locker room and everything. Having that relationship where he can challenge me and has helped me improve the club and actually given me an actual vision and those type of conversations where you understand each other and like learn and grow as people are the things that I always take away.
Definitely.
Largely as well. And, the players and this is a parting message to all the players that are watching it, grassroots football teams can give you some of the best friendships of your life as well. Be it on and off the field as well. You can have great relationships on the field, you can have great relationships off the field, you can have both. So I would always encourage people to play as long as they can and to be involved at whatever level they can for a club that really gets the best out of them as a human being as well, and develop from there.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, I think I couldn't agree more, Rob.
And apart from that, James, I just want to thank you for the time today. The near 2 hours that we've been speaking today, it flies by.
It does fly by.
Honestly, fly by.
Do you know what? When you get talking about a topic that you love and that you're passionate about, it does certainly fly by.
It does. But I just wanted to say thank you for your time, and we'll be doing a lot more on the podcast. And apart from that, just really thank you for your time today. A lot of good insight about how a larger organisation works at a community level. I just want to thank you for your time, James.
No worries, privilege, and
No
thank
problem.
you for the invite.
Lastly, on today's podcast, I just want to thank James one more time for appearing on today's show. What I really wanted to get across from a personal point of view, as well as hopefully from the viewers that are in a similar position, that run a football club and they want to grow and develop in the future, is that perspective from somebody that has the inner workings of a club such as Burghfield, where they've got multiple teams across all ages and genders as well. Apart from that, I've put all of the relevant links below towards Burghfield's website and their social media, as well as to James as well, and also to all of Hype Train's relevant information as well. Don't forget to give this video a like, subscribe to our channel. We're on the road to 1,000 subscribers, and we're looking to really expand our knowledge and everybody's to grassroots football and everything in between. And until next time, as ever, believe the hype.